Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who would keep secrets from her own family. But some nights, when the house was too quiet and my husband's side of the bed felt colder than my heart could bear, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, I had always been this way. My name is Rachel. I'm 41, a wife to a man who stopped seeing me long before I stopped craving to be seen. And a stepmother to a boy who, until that summer evening, I thought I knew. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because the air was sticky and restless, much like my thoughts that day. My husband, Mark, was away on yet another work trip, another excuse not to touch me, not to ask how I felt, not to notice the way I had been slowly becoming a ghost in my own kitchen. I always told myself I could handle the loneliness. That's what good wives do, right? They bury their needs so deep, they forget where they put them. But that evening, fate, or maybe my own hidden hunger, played a cruel joke on me. I was folding laundry in the guest room, humming an old love song under my breath, when I heard the faintest sound. A low gasp, like someone stifling a cry. At first, I thought it was the TV left on. But the living room was silent. And my stepson, Liam, was supposed to be at soccer practice. I followed the sound down the hallway, my heart knocking hard against my ribs, telling me to turn back. But something inside me, some reckless part that hadn't been touched in years, needed to see. Needed to feel something real. I pushed open Liam's bedroom door, just an inch at first. Just enough to see him, my 19-year-old stepson, lost in a moment so private, so raw, it stole my breath and replaced it with 1,000 forbidden thoughts. He didn't notice me. Or maybe he did, and didn't care. I should have closed the door. Should have walked away, locked myself in my room, and prayed the image out of my mind. But I didn't. I stayed. I watched. I wish I could tell you I was horrified. That I covered my eyes like a good mother should. But the truth? The truth is far messier than any vow I ever made at the altar. The truth is, standing there in the half-light of his doorway, something in me woke up, something starving, reckless, and ready to burn for a taste of what life used to feel like. Later that night, when Liam caught me watching him again, everything changed. The walls I had built around my secrets cracked open, and his eyes told me he had secrets of his own. But before I tell you how far I let it go, you need to understand, I wasn't just betraying my husband. I was betraying the version of myself I thought was too old, too proper, too broken to feel alive again. So tell me, would you have turned away? Or would you have stepped closer, like I did? Stay with me, because this is only the beginning. Maybe if Mark had looked at me the way Liam did, none of this would have happened. Maybe if he hadn't turned our bedroom into a place where I slept alone in my silk nightgown, pretending the cold sheets were enough, maybe then I wouldn't have found myself craving the warmth of someone else's eyes. But life doesn't care much for maybes. It only cares for what is. The night after I caught Liam, I found him standing by the fridge, shirtless, drinking orange juice straight from the carton. I should have scolded him, motherly, proper, safe. But my words caught in my throat. His eyes met mine over the rim of the carton, and for a breathless moment, the kitchen lights felt too bright, too honest. He didn't look away. Neither did I. We both knew something had shifted, but neither of us dared to speak it. Instead, we floated around each other like two guilty planets stuck in the same orbit. He lingered longer in doorways. I found excuses to knock on his door, pretending to need help with the internet or the TV remote. One afternoon, I found his soccer jersey in the laundry basket. I pressed it to my face, God help me, and inhaled the faint trace of cologne and sweat that didn't belong to my husband. I dropped it when I heard Mark's car in the driveway, my heart pounding with a shame I couldn't quite name. Mark came in with that distant look he always wore lately, like his mind was stuck at the office or worse, with someone else. He pecked my cheek and didn't notice my flushed skin, my restless hands. He didn't ask why dinner was late. He didn't notice the jersey lying half-folded on the dryer. That's how it was now. I was invisible to him. But Liam, God, Liam saw every tiny crack I tried to plaster over. He started asking me if I was okay. He'd linger by the kitchen island, eyes dipping to my lips when he thought I wouldn't notice. One night, as I washed dishes, I felt him behind me, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his bare skin through my thin robe. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. The air trembled between us, thick with every unsaid word, every unacted thought. I closed my eyes and whispered a thank you to the empty room when he finally walked away. Because I knew if he hadn't, I wouldn't have had the strength to. But there's only so long two people can dance along the edge of something so wrong, and so desperately wanted, before they fall. And in this house of secrets and hollow vows, falling felt dangerously close to flying. I used to believe betrayal was loud, screaming matches, broken dishes, a suitcase slammed shut at midnight. But I've learned it can be quiet, too. So quiet you don't hear it until it's inside you, wrapped around your ribs like a secret lover's hand. Mark and I barely touched these days. Even when he was home, his presence felt like a polite stranger in my kitchen. We'd sit across the dinner table, fork scraping plate, the silence between us thicker than the pot roast he barely tasted. I remember one night he looked up from his phone, studying me like a faded photograph. "You look different lately," he said, voice flat but his eyes searching. My pulse stuttered. Did he know? Could he sense the truth I carried under my skin, truth that pulsed stronger every time Liam brushed past me in the hallway? Different good or different bad? I asked, forcing a smile. He shrugged, already glancing back at his screen. Just different. Then he was gone again, retreating to his office, the door clicking shut on another evening we would not share. Meanwhile, Liam's presence filled every empty space Mark left behind. It was in the way he hovered by the sink while I washed up, the way he murmured goodnight too close to my ear, the way his fingers brushed mine when he handed me a glass. Tiny collisions that left sparks on my skin long after he was gone. One Saturday, Mark left for a conference, another weekend trip that tasted like lies. He didn't kiss me goodbye. I didn't ask him to. Instead, I stood by the window, watching his car roll out of the driveway while behind me, I felt Liam's eyes on my bare shoulders. He spoke first, voice low, like a confession. "You deserve better, you know." I didn't turn around. If I did, I wasn't sure who I'd become. "Don't say that," I whispered. But I wanted him to. I needed him to. He moved closer. I could feel the warmth of him at my back, so close my breath caught in my throat. He didn't touch me, he never touched me first, but his presence alone cracked something inside me that no marriage vow could hold together anymore. I turned, slowly, my eyes catching his. He looked young and reckless, yet the way he watched me made me feel like I was 25 again, wild, wanted, alive. "Liam," my voice trembled. I didn't know if it was a plea or a warning. He smiled, soft and sad. "I just want you to be happy. Even if it's wrong." Before I could answer, the front door rattled. My heart lurched, I hadn't heard a car. Mark's voice boomed from the hallway, cheerful, too loud, like he was trying to drown out ghosts. "Forgot my laptop. Can you believe it?" In a heartbeat, Liam stepped back, slipping into the shadows near the stairs. I forced my breathing steady and turned just as Mark appeared, "Ty Askew," eyes darting suspiciously between me and the empty hallway behind me. "Everything okay?" he asked. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Everything's fine," I lied. I didn't dare look toward Liam. I didn't dare look at my husband too long either, for fear he might see exactly how much of me no longer belonged to him. That night, I lay awake next to Mark's sleeping body, listening to the muffled sound of Liam's door clicking shut down the hall. I wondered if he was awake, too, wondering what it would feel like if I slipped into his bed instead. I didn't move. Not that night. But the thought stayed with me, thrumming through my veins long after the moon had dipped behind the clouds. Some betrayals roar. Ours hummed like a lullaby, soft, steady, and too sweet to stop. Some nights, I wonder if our house knew before we did, if the walls ached from holding secrets too big for plaster and paint. Because every creak in the floorboards, every flicker of shadow felt like a heartbeat counting down to something we both pretended we could control. It was a Wednesday when everything began to slip. Mark was away again, this time not even bothering with excuses. He called once, voice clipped and distracted, saying he'd be late getting back. I didn't ask how late. I didn't ask who he was with. Maybe I didn't want to know. After I hung up, I found Liam on the porch, leaning against the railing, eyes soft under the porch light. He didn't speak at first, and neither did I. We just stood there in the night air, the scent of summer rain hovering like a secret. Is he coming back tonight? Liam asked, his voice barely more than a hush. I shook my head. My throat was too tight for words. He stepped closer, so close I could see the stubble along his jaw, the way his eyes looked at me, like I was something he'd been searching for in the dark. Rachel, he said my name like it was fragile. Like he was afraid I might break if he spoke too loudly. I closed my eyes. I shouldn't have. Because when I did, I could feel him. Every heartbeat, every inch of him, waiting, asking without asking. When his fingers brushed mine, I didn't pull away. When he tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, I didn't stop him. I leaned in, God help me, I leaned into everything I knew could ruin us. I can't, I whispered, but the truth trembled out of me before I could swallow it back. I don't want to keep feeling invisible. He touched my cheek, and the world fell silent except for my pulse, loud and pleading in my chest. You're not invisible to me, he said. His thumb traced my lower lip. You never were. A tear slipped free, and he caught it with his mouth before it reached my chin. The warmth of him, the softness, it was too much. And not enough. Somewhere in the house, the grandfather clock struck midnight. I knew what that sound meant, that I had one last chance to step back, to pretend none of this was real. But I didn't move. Neither did he. Between us, the truth breathed louder than our promises ever did, fragile, reckless, and ready to break us both. I don't know who moved first, maybe it was both of us at once, a quiet surrender we'd been tiptoeing around for weeks. His lips brushed mine, just once, like a question he already knew the answer to. It wasn't a kiss yet, just a promise hanging in the breath between us. But before I could taste him fully, headlights swept across the porch. Tires crunched over gravel. Mark's car. We froze. His thumb still on my lip, my hands curled in the fabric of his shirt. For a heartbeat, I thought of running, slipping inside, fixing my hair, pretending to read a book like some innocent ghost. But Liam didn't move. And neither did I. The car door slammed. Footsteps. The front gate clicked open. I could hear Mark humming under his breath, something cheerful, out of place in the thick air between Liam and me. Panic made my pulse stutter. I pushed Liam back, breathless. Go, inside. Now. He caught my wrist. Tell him. Tell him you're not his to ignore anymore, Liam, please. My whisper snapped like a wire about to break. Mark's voice carried up the porch steps. Rachel? That you out here? I tore my wrist free just as Mark rounded the corner. Liam slipped inside, the screen door clattering behind him, a sound so loud it made my stomach twist. Mark frowned at the door, then back at me. His tie was loose, hair ruffled, and for the first time in months, he really looked at me. What's going on? He asked. His eyes flicked to my flushed cheeks, my parted lips. He stepped closer, sniffed the air like he could smell the truth on my skin. Nothing. I just needed some air. My voice sounded too light, too small. Mark studied me with that calm, measured silence that always scared me more than any shout could. Then, so suddenly it nearly made me flinch, he laughed. Is that right? He leaned in, brushed a kiss on my forehead that made my skin crawl. Well, you might want to get some more. I invited someone over. An old friend. He'll be staying in the guest room for a while. I blinked, confused. Who? Before Mark could answer, the porch light flickered as another figure stepped up behind him, a man about Mark's age, tall, sharply dressed, eyes bright and too knowing. He looked at me and smiled, and I swear my stomach dropped right through the floorboards. Rachel, Mark said, almost smug, this is Ethan. He and I go way back. He needed a place to stay while he handles some business in town. Ethan's eyes swept over me, lingered a moment too long at my throat, my lips, the way my robe clung to my hips. His smile widened just enough to make my breath hitch. Pleasure to meet you, Rachel. Mark's told me so much about you. Something in his tone curled cold and hot around my spine at once. Mark was watching me now, his hand heavy on my back like a warning. I could feel Liam's eyes through the window behind us, watching, waiting, burning with questions I couldn't answer. Inside this house now stood a new secret, wrapped in an old one. A stranger who looked at me like he knew I was on the edge of falling, and maybe wanted to push me over himself. In that moment, I realized the real betrayal might not be what Liam and I were about to do, but what Mark had already done, quietly, deliberately, behind a smile I'd mistaken for indifference. And for the first time, I wondered if I was the only one playing with fire. Or if this whole house was about to go up in flames. Ethan didn't leave. Days turned into a week, and each morning his presence bled through the walls, smiles too intimate at breakfast, questions too sharp at dinner. He watched me the way Liam did, but colder, like he was cataloging every hidden fracture in my marriage. Mark, suddenly attentive, hovered around me like a guard dog. He brought me flowers. He kissed my neck in front of Ethan, in front of Liam. He laughed too loud, held my hand too tightly, like he knew he was too late but still wanted to claim what he'd abandoned for years. And Liam? He grew restless in the shadows. I'd catch him staring from the end of the hall, fury and hunger twisting inside him. More than once, I felt his fingers brush mine under the table, daring me to acknowledge what we'd almost done. One stormy night, the house finally broke. Mark and Ethan sat in the living room, glasses of whiskey between them, laughing like brothers. I was in the kitchen, pretending to tidy up, my heart pounding with every thunderclap. Liam stood behind me, so close I could feel his chest rise and fall. He knows, Liam breathed against my ear. Ethan knows. Mark too. They're playing you, Rachel. I turned, my eyes wide, my voice a trembling plea. What are you saying? His hand cradled my face. I won't let them use you. Not anymore. Not tonight. Then, before I could stop him, he kissed me, soft at first, then deeper, pouring every stolen glance, every unsaid word into my mouth. The storm raged outside but inside me was louder, breaking, healing, wanting all at once. A crash behind us, Mark's glass shattered on the floor. Ethan's cold laughter cutting through the thunder. Well, Ethan drawled, clapping slowly, I guess there's no more pretending, is there? Mark's face was red, a vein pulsing at his temple. But his eyes weren't shocked, they were defeated, hollow. You think you're the first? You think I didn't see you becoming her new secret? His laugh cracked like glass. This whole house is built on lies. I stepped away from Liam, but he grabbed my hand, grounding me. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, grinning like the devil. You have choices now, Rachel, he said. Stay in this cage, or burn it all down. What's it going to be? My heart, once so quiet, roared in my chest. I turned to Mark, to Ethan, to Liam, my betrayal, my freedom, my salvation. Then I spoke the truth for the first time in years. I'm done hiding. And in the silence that followed, Liam squeezed my hand, while Ethan's grin promised this story wasn't over. Some houses don't just break. Some houses teach you how to set yourself free. When the storm ended that night, the house felt strangely quiet, not peaceful, but honest. It was the first time in years that every secret, every lie, had cracked open under the same roof. I stood in the living room, barefoot on broken glass, feeling like a woman I hadn't met in a very long time. Mark sat slumped on the couch, head in his hands. He didn't fight when I said I wanted him gone. He didn't argue, didn't plead. Maybe he knew there was nothing left to save, nothing left to forgive. His eyes, when they finally met mine, held regret but no love. I think we both accepted it. We'd betrayed each other long before Liam or Ethan ever stepped through our door. Ethan left the next morning, the storm's last witness. He didn't say goodbye, only smiled as he carried his bag down the driveway, a silent promise lingering in his eyes. Maybe I'd see him again. Maybe not. But some men exist to remind you of your own power to choose. He did that for me, in his cruel, unsettling way. And Liam? He stayed. But not in my house, not right away. We needed to breathe, to heal. We stood on the porch as dawn broke over the garden I'd once tended alone. His hand brushed my cheek, and for the first time, there was no shame in wanting him. I don't want to be another secret, he whispered. You won't be, I promised. But I can't be half a woman to you either. I need to find out who I am when no one's watching. He nodded, eyes soft but steady. He kissed my forehead, tender, respectful, true, then walked away into the sunrise. He didn't ask me to run after him. And I didn't beg him to stay. Some loves deserve time to grow in the light. In the weeks that followed, I opened every window in that house. I sold the couch where Mark and Ethan had laughed over my pain. I tore down the heavy drapes that had hidden my loneliness. I filled the rooms with flowers, bright, unruly, living things that refused to wilt. Sometimes Liam calls. Sometimes we meet for coffee, touch hands across a cafe table like two people learning how to love without lies. And sometimes I dream about that night, the storm, the broken glass. But now, the dream doesn't haunt me. It reminds me how strong I became when everything fell apart. I once believed loyalty meant staying silent, sacrificing my own heartbeat for someone else's comfort. Now I know real love, the kind worth fighting for, begins with loving yourself enough to break the rules that cage you. If you're listening, maybe my story sounds familiar. Maybe you're standing in a quiet house, wondering if anyone sees you. I promise, you can choose yourself. Even if it means losing everything you thought was home. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? Would you forgive? Would you run? And if you'd like to see what happens next, would you want a sequel? Your secrets are safe here. Let's talk. Crescent moon speech balloon sparkles.